let me tell you a little something about the life behind these bars. While we're sitting in our freedom, we got kids behind these bars. Mental health is on the rise, but they put them in these bars. Kids have taken all their life, a pool of blood behind these bars. Can't afford their medication, so they put them in these bars. Parents got no dedication, want to put them in these bars. Country looking for the dream, but they're stuck behind these bars. But you're only hurting self, kings and queens behind these bars. Now, how you got a PhD trapped behind these bars? Education Corps won't set them free and trap them in these bars. Capitalistic petition to pipeline them to these bars, leaving all our kids' hopes and dreams dead behind these bars. Now, as this poem illustrates how the system bars youth of color, I want to share some statistics with you that makes this phenomenon a little more alarming. 2 out of 10 youth have experienced psychological, social, emotional, or behavioral problems in their life. Out of those, 8 out of 10 of those youth are youth of color or poor. 5 out of 10 youth have experienced in or out of school punishment between kindergarten and 12th grade, yet only make up 19% of the population. 6.5 out of 10 youth of color have said that their race has strongly or slightly affected and limited their opportunities to success. So as you see, we have all this evidence that shows that systematic biases really negatively impact youth of color. And because of this, they have internalized this ideology of inferiority that the system has taught them. For example, 4 out of 10 adults of color experience lifelong PTSD symptoms, yet less than half of them forego treatment because of cultural stigmas, social stigmas, or it's just not necessary. 4 out of 10 adults also have said that they've had symptoms of anxiety, depression, and trauma from racial stigmas and microaggressions, but only 2 out of 10 actually seek out treatment. And parents of color are less likely than white parents to prepare and expect their child to go to college. So again, at the individual level, at the family level, at the community level, there's this ideology that there's an inferiority from the white counterparts because the system biases has taught them such, and they choose to survive in this, living in this state of lack of wellness. So you're like, what's the problem? Why is ideology so important? Well, institutionalized racism and biases have been around since the discovery of America. It still persists today in the humans that we interact with, in the families and systems that we interact with, in the system that persists today, like education, law enforcement, city, regional planning. Because of these biases that are in the system, it creates systematic trauma, which is the cognitive or behavioral response to these biases at the individual, family, and community level. I recognize that youth of color don't even recognize that they're in this systematic trauma and that they're forced to survive and endure. And because of it, they lack self-efficacy, wellness, and that access to success, as well as dismantling the structure that they need to survive in to have a healthy developmental process, which is traumatic in itself. In basic terms, youth of color can't do better because they're taught that they don't deserve to do better. And the very systems that were made to help youth of color are the very perpetuators that are destroying youth of color. So let's talk about what this looks like. So there are a lot of programs that are trying to address this problem, right? So we have Boys and Girls Club, we have communities and schools, we have NYSP, that was a formerly program, that was a sport program for kids. So they focus on community engagement, focus on mentorship, focus on sport and play. All very important things to help address trauma and adverse behavior in youth of color. There are also programs such as reentry services, alternative solutions, restorative justice, and KIT that focus on giving resources for gaps and disparities for youth of color that's perpetuated by this stigma. So while we have programs in place that address the things that are needed for the gaps for youth of color, something that's missing is we're focusing so much on putting Band-Aids on the symptoms that we forget to address the problem. And so I want to offer an innovative solution. We're addressing the problem, the ideology, the mindset, the very, very thing that we are spinning our wheels and spending our money on towards the problems. I want to focus on not having the system give resources, and us professionals give resources, but allowing the youth of color, the experts, to cultivate their own resources for themselves and pass on to their community. I also want to intervene with high-level mental health intervention, because this is probably the thing that pulls it all together and usually forgone in all these other resources. mostly because of funding. It's a lot of money, which we'll talk about later. But the biggest thing that I want to focus on is let's stop focusing on trying to fix the system. We're spinning our wheels, right? Let's focus on empowering the youth and equipping the youth of color. And most of all, let us not anymore determine their success. Let's let them determine their success. And so my offer is self-efficacy. And in basic terms, self-efficacy is that grit, as the research says, the mixture of resiliency, empowerment, and skills to come together and allow youth of color to build the life that's sustainable, make aware of what's going to keep it sustainable, and then make it sustainable for the people in the community around them. And so here's my intervention in this sport. It's a sport-based curriculum over a period of 16 weeks. It will go twice a year. And it's to help address and induce efficacy and wellness in youth of color, specifically through emotional intelligence, communication, and relationships. The thing is to leverage on trust and familiar bonds, as well as psychotherapy strategies and psychoeducation to help youth empower themselves to get the healing that they deserve. So it's at a 4-tier level because we're going to focus on the different levels of how this trauma has existed. So they start as energizers, energized, ready to learn more about themselves, learn more about what they've been through, learn more about healing and therapy intervention to focus on individual efficacy and wellness. They will then graduate to become mentors, where they will focus on peer interactions and peer efficacy and wellness. Then they will graduate to become ambassadors. Well, they'll now take what they've learned with their peers and with themselves and the healing that they've learned for themselves and share the news to their parents, to their communities, to the others that are broken by this systematic trauma. So this will be through parental forums, as well as community engagement fairs, again, focusing on psychoeducation, focusing on community distress, community trauma, and community healing. They will then finally graduate to developers. And again, I said that the youth, the true experts, should be the one to address the system. So they will work with local college programs to develop a curriculum to administer a training to educators, law enforcement, and political leaders to give the opportunity to work together to dismantle the systemic racism and the systemic trauma. And so we want to break the usual cycle of going back in the same patterns as all of you have talked about, as we've seen over and over. And we just want to start a new cycle that ends with wellness, efficacy, and liberation. So what does success look like? At the individual level, I want kids to understand that they deserve wellness. And I want them to take part in things that help them towards healing, help them towards self-awareness, self-hope, and all those things. At a peer level, I want them to be able to talk with their friends, to trust with their friends, and have peer interactions about wellness, about healthiness, and efficacy. At the community level, I want the community to start getting involved. I want them to get involved with initiatives. I want them to go to town halls. I want them to go to forums and get involved with their kids of learning how to be healthy with them. And at the systematic level, I would love to see educators and law enforcement change their environments that they're working in with this population of youth of color and populations of color to make it more equitable and more inclusive. So my budget here that I'm proposing is a 4-year budget. The reason it's 4 years is to allow 4 cycles of this program to go through since it's a 4-cycle program. The biggest focus I want to put is on the mental health clinicians. As you see, that number is higher, but again, we're able to invest so much money into more affluent neighborhoods and give high-skilled mental professionals. Then why can't we do this with the most vulnerable population that we have? Along with this, I would like to start incorporating financial literacy and financial stability. And so this is a very important component of involving stipends for mentors and ambassadors that are a part of the program. Some of the major resources we would like to use, again, as I said earlier, are large colleges in Tennessee. So this will take place in Memphis, Tennessee, my hometown. Especially HBCUs, or historically black colleges and universities. Partnerships with athletic associations. This kind of mirrors how Life Sports at Ohio State does it, and it's been very successful. Community service partnerships, as well as community leader partnerships. Again, building that rapport, and the research talks about when we have political figures that we can trust and that show active participation in the issues of certain populations. It helps to build that rapport, and it helps to build financial stability. We also would like to partner with people such as Nike, who's shown interest in social justice initiatives recently. So the next steps are connecting with those stakeholders and hopefully starting a pilot program in summer 2020. This is gonna be tough, right? This is ideology. We're not addressing problems, we're not addressing needs, we're not addressing people, we're addressing a mindset. But by leveraging that understanding and that return of investment for both parties involved, it takes the obligation off anyone and puts the opportunity to everyone. And to have someone standing here right in front of you who's been behind those bars, speaking to you as a potential doctoral candidate, if I'm allowed to make it, they should be allowed to as well. So as I'm sitting here behind this mic spitting you these bars, there's another kid who lost their life, a victim in these bars. So if we don't advocate for kids stripped behind these bars, then all of us are really the ones trapped behind these bars.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions or?
Way to go.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Don't make me cry. Look out here. It's okay to cry.
That was compelling.